like a lot of women in my age group, experiencing perimenopause and menopause, last year I found myself at my GP a little more often. It's hard to get an appointment, but I do have a very good GP, and unfortunately there was an issue that required me to have an ultrasound scan, and that was really just to check things out and hopefully everything was going to be fine. I had a bit of an anxious wait for that scan. It also had to be reorganised, so if anyone's ever tried to phone up the local hospital or health board, it's not easy, and I think for women as well, when we're busy, putting everyone else first, it's just that additional bureaucracy as well as the waiting time. So anyway, long story short, I eventually got my appointment after having to escalate the issue, and my scan was on Hogmanay. I got my results early January, and I was given the all clear in terms of what that initial scan was about. But unfortunately or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, I tend to be more of a glass half full kind of person. They found something else, so it's like an incidental discovery, and that meant I had to have more scans and more tests. So it turns out I have a cyst on one of my ovaries. That's quite common, and it happens all the time, and a lot of cysts are regarded as simple cysts and they just go away by themselves, but mine is in the more kind of complex category, and is what you might call sort of borderline. So I've had more tests and an MRI scan, so I'm now on a waiting list for surgery. I need to have an operation. That could be, quite a major operation, and like many people across Scotland, I now find myself on a waiting list. It has been escalated just because of the nature of it, but there's just a lot of uncertainty, and yeah, it's just one of these things that happens, but it's just that importance of following up on appointments, speaking to your GP, going to scans when you get the appointments through. So yeah, it wasn't the start to the year I was expecting. I also got that phone call from my GP the day after my birthday, so turning 45 has been a bit dramatic and a bit stressful. For me, International Women's Day is always a really important date in the calendar, and as someone who has the privilege of chairing the cross-party group on women's health, I am immersed in women's health from a policy point of view, and also the lived experience of my constituents, but of course women right across Scotland. It was through speaking to other women that I realised that I was going through menopause symptoms, and I got myself checked out. So women talking to women, it really helps, and it challenges stigma, it takes a lot of the fear away. So as we were approaching International Women's Day, and I do have this issue hanging over me right now, I just felt it was important to talk about it, because I do have a platform as a politician, as an election candidate, to hopefully let other women know that they're not alone in going through things like this. But in terms of the waiting times, obviously there's the fear, because nobody really wants to have an operation, and some of these tests can be quite invasive themselves. But also, if you are on a pathway because there's a suspicion of cancer, or you've got a condition like endometriosis, these are very chronic, painful, debilitating conditions. They can be really life-changing for women. So just this week I've chaired an event in Parliament with the fantastic charity Endometriosis UK, and they've done a phenomenal amount of work. In March is Endometriosis Action Month, and the emphasis is on action, because we do have good awareness now, but the action is the part that we need to work on. But unfortunately, they unveiled a report this week that captured the experience of the women that they support, and we found that in Scotland, the time to get a diagnosis for endometriosis is now over 10 years. A couple of years ago, it was still very long. It was over 8 years, but now it's over 10 years. And Scotland's got the worst waiting times in the UK right now. So by that measure, we are going backwards, and that's failing women's fertility, mental health, careers, relationships. So we need to prioritise and elevate women's health. I'm very fortunate to have the platform as a politician. The election is in 2 months' time and the clock is ticking, but I also know from my experience in Parliament that many women have conditions diagnosed at quite an advanced stage or when it's too late. So in my situation, there's been an early detection, and hopefully the surgery will deal with that, and once the surgery's done we'll know more about that situation. But for anyone who's got a family history, including cancer, obviously it's a worrying time for people, and I just wanted to speak out on International Women's Day to let other women know that they're not alone. These waiting times are horrific. They are horrendous. And there are far too many women in Scotland today who are having to go private. Some are having to go abroad to get treatment, which is not always the best decision to make. And that's involving women, raiding their life savings, borrowing money from family members that are getting into debt. And if you think about it, if a woman is living with a condition like endometriosis, or has ovarian cancer, or has a really serious condition that does require a hysterectomy, they're already having an impact in their job and their career. Women often become financially impacted. That can push women into poverty, and as I mentioned before, it really can affect relationships. You can't plan for anything, and if you're on one of these waiting lists, you can't even plan a holiday, you can't go to social events. Many women who are waiting for these gynae appointments experience abnormal bleeding, and that can be really embarrassing and debilitating. So I think years ago it was like, oh, she's got women's problems, and no one wanted to talk about it. But this is a government problem, it's a political problem, it's a Scottish-wide problem, because women up and down the country are being badly let down. We do have a real postcode lottery. In some health boards you'll be seen a little bit quicker, but in some parts of Scotland it is horrendous. And when you think about it, if you have, and it's ovarian Cancer Awareness Month, but we have too many women having ovarian cancer diagnosed at stages 3 and 4, when their treatment options can be more limited. Personally, I've sat with women from Lanarkshire and Glasgow who have had to go to London for treatment, they've had to pay for that in the private sector, and there's too many women that I've met who are no longer here, and I've had to speak to their family and their loved ones because the diagnosis and the treatment came too late. So women's health hasn't been a priority. Recently the Scottish Government has said that they're putting much more money in to gynecological services, and that's good, but we're so far behind from where we need to be. So when I was hosting that event with Endometriosis UK in Parliament the other night, it was a room full of women supporting each other, volunteering, sharing their lived experience, giving people hope. But we were sitting there looking at a report that was telling us that we're going backwards and that women are waiting longer. So there is some progress, but not enough, and we can't celebrate failure when women's lives are on hold and women's lives are being cut short. If we can detect cancer or any changes in cells early, if we can do treatment and surgery that's preventative, if we can do the treatment or surgery at an early stage, then that boosts the survival chances of that woman, who's often a mother, a sister, a daughter, a grandmother. Target Ovarian Cancer are one of the charities that I've worked really closely with over the years in Parliament, and it just makes me sad because there's so many women who fought really hard to get treatment and to be supported by the NHS the NHS that they've paid into, that they love and support, and too many of them have not had that support when they need it most. So I'm really passionate about this because, you know, prevention really is the best medicine. And if we have that awareness, if women are empowered to sit down and say to their GP, no, I have these symptoms, and talk about it and not be dismissed. For me, it is about making sure that women are believed and don't have to go to their GP 10 times saying the same thing. There is good awareness of the symptoms of ovarian cancer, but too often it's confused with something else. And I think for women who are going through perimenopause and menopause, and that's a lot of women out there, the perimenopause phase that no one really talks about can last for 10 years. There are almost 35 menopause symptoms that are recognised. I think it even might be more than that. I've probably got a lot of them. So sometimes you just put it down to, oh, I'm a busy mum, I'm tired, we're working hard, we're all doing too much. But if that means that you're putting off going to your doctor or really pushing and advocating for yourself. So, you know, for me, it's about supporting women, it's about supporting our NHS. It's why I'm standing to be a candidate for the Scottish Parliament again, because there's so much to do. I feel there's been a lot of complacency. Too often in the Scottish Parliament, we hear government ministers say, oh, but the waiting times are a bit better than Wales or in England. Is that good enough? Is that the height of our ambition? I don't want the women that I represent in Lanarkshire to have to give up their pension pot or their life savings or borrow money off family and friends to go for a hysterectomy or to get treatment for ovarian cancer or to get help for endometriosis. Women deserve to get this care on the NHS, free at the point of need, not in 5 years' time or 10 years' time. So yeah, I could talk about this all day. We don't have all day. I think it's just really, really important, and it must be a priority. It's a political priority for me. It's a personal priority for me. As a Scottish Labour politician, I know that we've brought this research into the media over the weekend to coincide with International Women's Day, because these statistics, it's not just numbers on a spreadsheet, it is the lives of women in Scotland, and we need to value women in Scotland.